Good evening, everyone. Mitchell Torres with Besmoque. Sorry, music's a little loud. Good evening, welcome. Happy to have you all here. And tonight's going to be a fun night. We've got Christopher Korey from Christopher Korey Collection tonight. And really excited to be able to speak with him and looking forward to it because he is very well known within the menswear collection in the community. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think we got him in already. We'll go ahead and get him joined in. Got some B.B. King playing in the background with some Eric Clapton. One of my favorites. Favorite duos, favorite combos. Waiting for Mr. Korey to hop on in. And there he is. How are you, sir?
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. And yourself?
I'm well. Thank you.
Looking sharp. Love the pinstripes. Love the chalk stripes.
Oh, thank you. You as well.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. So, you're in New York, yeah?
Yeah. In New York.
How's New York weather these days?
New York weather actually today was sort of unseasonably cold, but prior to this, we've had some beautiful weather. No complaints here. It's nice. Spring is in the air.
Very nice. And so, with the weather change, it's time to start swapping out weights of materials and things like that.
Right.
What are you looking forward to wearing with this new season coming in? Anything in particular?
I don't know if there's anything I'm particularly looking forward to in one piece in particular. I'm happy to get out of winter clothes. These days, I think people are happy to get into any kind of clothes that are, different than what they've been wearing for the past year.
Yes, indeed.
Ready to put the sweatpants on the shelf for a while. But I don't know if there's any particular piece, but certainly lighter and easier fabrics to move around in, where you sort of feel like you live in the south of France or in Positano or someplace like that is always welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I envy seasons. I'm in Miami, Florida, and it's one season summer. And so, everything for us is a little bit different unless you work in a meat locker, cold, office environment where you can wear heavier clothing. Other than that, it's all, very lightweight. But I see some of the styles come out, or let me not say come out, but I see people dressing with style with those layers and those extra pieces and a hat, gloves, scarves and things. And I'm so envious of it. I'm like, I want to be able to wear stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. It's always, the thing about winter and fall is you can have so much more fun because there's so many more layers to them.
Right.
You can sort of accessorize more and you can layer upon layer and have fun. And the fabrics tend to be richer and a little more interesting than warm weather fabrics. But that being said, I'm fortunate to live in an area where we have 4 seasons a year. So you're able to play around with a lot of different things, but they all have their pros and cons, just like anything else in life. It's fun to play around with, but anything that goes on too long, you get sick of. So, it's like a bad relationship that, you need to change.
You just can't escape and you want to run the opposite direction.
You don't want to break up with them, but you have to.
So, one of my favorite things to wear in colder climate when I do visit is a hat. I don't see many pictures of you with a hat. Do you wear hats? Are you a fan of hats in general?
In general, I love hats. I'm not necessarily a hat guy for myself, but I always love them on other people.
Right.
It's just one of those things. And there are some incredible hat makers out there that it's an art, and wearing them is an art, and it's for both men and women, it's an incredible accessory.
Yeah.
over the years, I've tried to simplify my life as much as I can. So I try, like, the less I can put on, the better it is. And, but, I love them on other people. And I always think about wearing them, but it's just one of those things that I never really reach for. And I'm a big believer, not just having stuff, but you're not going to wear it if it's not sort of authentically you,
Sure.
then, let someone else have it and let someone else enjoy it. And,
You know,
and you can move on to something else.
indeed. And I'm glad you said about authentically you, right? Because I've been doing a couple chat series with other people. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the menswear community is the guys who I admire with that kind of style have a certain, I don't want to say a staple, right? But they know who they are. They're comfortable with how they dress and what they're presenting. And we talked about accessories, right? And hats and fobs and things like that. Are you an accessory person? And if not, what do you consider to be like too many accessories? Like, what's the number of where it gets to be like, okay, that might be too much?
Well, I think it was Coco Chanel who said, and she was speaking mostly to women, but I think it applies these days to men as well. Before you leave the house, take one thing off. And I believe that that's pretty good advice. For me personally, it's an individual thing, but for me personally, I feel like less is more. And I think in the past few years, especially in menswear, we've gotten into a place of over accessorizing. And I think that in large part because of social media, and people want to be recognized and they want sort of a signature thing. And I'm a much bigger fan of accessories that are either nostalgic or they mean something to you, something that was handed down to you over generations.
Sure.
But that being said, there are places for other things too that sometimes you just want to have fun with.
Right.
And some things actually serve a purpose. And then, we get into like the pocket watch thing and all those things. And you can go down the list, but I think it has to be individual and it has to sort of have some sort of significance, especially on a guy. Otherwise, it just becomes way too much jewelry on a guy.
Right.
Then you're bordering on Liberace kind of look, and you kind of want to steer away. He did it well, and you probably want to leave it to him. But I actually think
no rhinestone studded square glasses.
Yeah, you know what? On the right guy, I'm all for it. But unless you're Liberace or a cousin of his, maybe you want to like think twice about it. But in general, I would say less is more. I think cufflinks certainly for a man, and some fine timepiece that whether it's vintage or it's something more modern. That certainly works. But then when you start getting into too many things, like I remember the lapel pin craze for a while. That was big for a while. And then it just started to become, I always feel like anything that distracts or, sort of takes away from the face, it starts to get too busy and people, you start paying attention to what you're wearing rather than you. So I think probably paring it down or just wearing things that have some significance to you. But then again, there are some guys, I've seen them at PT Umo and a lot of the menswear that are just accessorized to death, and they're wearing like 10,000 bracelets and it looks amazing on them because they own it and it's authentic to them. So for them, I think, God bless. For me, it's usually a watch or a gift that somebody gave me or something of my father's or anything like that. That's sort of about the limit for me.
So as far as your style and with your dress, what would you say is your most treasured piece? You know, whether it be an heirloom or something that you purchased of significance. What is something that you look at and you're like, you know what, that's something that I'm always going to keep and break it out for really nice occasions or something special for me?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I would say probably right now, certainly. It sort of changes as the decades go on, and you start piling up more decades behind you. But right now, I would have to say it's probably at this particular period of my life, my father's watch
Hmm.
holds a
Wrist, is
lot.
it a wristwatch or a pocket watch?
It's a wristwatch. It's a Rolex from the early '60s,
Oh,
and
nice.
he wore it all his life. I mean, I never saw him without it. And I would have to say that is probably one of the things that I cherish most, and I do wear it a lot. I have a lot of his pocket squares that I'll
Mm.
wear every so often as well. I have a pair of his original Ray-Ban sunglasses uh,
Wow. How
that
neat
are,
is that?
yeah, they're probably from late '60s, early '70s, and actually the difference between then and now is, I mean, they're fully glass. They weigh a ton. I mean, like
Right,
on your
right.
face, they're
They leave marks in the bridge of your
beyond,
nose. Yeah.
like for like 3 days. But I have to say, those things and like the vintagey things, and it's sort of the stories behind them. Where they've been. Those things have been all over the world with him, and travels and periods of his life. And so I would say those things mean more to me right now than any other things that I have. But there are other things too. There are gifts that people have given me, people who are special to me in my life
Hmm.
that I hold dear, whether it's a pen or a watch or anything that you can keep with you, and it reminds you of them,
Right.
at various times of the day, or those things mean the most.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, the pocket square I'm wearing tonight is my grandfather's. And
That's
so,
amazing. That's
to
amazing.
have something like that to hold
Yeah,
on to memories and just bring
yeah,
back instantaneous memories, right? You tuck it in, and he was wearing this the day I got married, and he gave me my favorite two words. And he said, if you want to be happy, here's your two words that are going to keep you happy in your wedding, in your marriage, and it's yes, dear. And every time, every time
he's a
I
wise man.
and every time I see it, it's immediate transport back to that moment,
Right,
and
right.
it's so special. And
That's
I
great.
could see,
That is something that you have a little piece of him with you all the time, and that's a great thing.
yeah, and so interesting how you were talking about the watch, and so watches need repair and care and things like that. And since it is a treasured thing for you, I was reading this article about patina on watches and people not necessarily wanting to buff them, clean them, or whatnot, because it keeps the authenticity and the aging of the timepiece. Have you
Yeah.
ever been down that road where you're looking at it and going, do I do this to this or not, or do I just keep it as is?
No, I think, for something like that, for the watch, like the internals and the mechanics of it, that you have to certainly keep up with. But
Yeah.
I kind of feel like the older and more beat up it gets, it's in some ways like your face, each wrinkle tells a story,
Right,
and
right.
you can sort of wear it as a badge of honor.
And boy, do I
For
have stories. I mean,
you
it's like
know,
a whole
bro,
novel.
no, it's an
War and Peace right
encyclopedia.
around
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Oh yeah. Uh, I would say, for instance, on that watch, it's an old Pepsi Rolex, and the
Oh, cool.
outside dial is very faded and worn. And sort of the more faded and worn it gets, the more I like it.
Right.
And, it's the history behind it. It's really, you think about how many times that thing's been in the sun and what sun it was in,
What did
whether
it
it was.
witness? Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and all the adventures that went with it. So no, I feel like the older that things get, I'll actually give you a really good example. I have one of his old cameras that basically documented both my sister and my childhood.
Wow.
And he traveled all over the world with it and whatever. And the case that it's in, and if
Oh,
you can
wow.
see that, is like very worn and sort of tattered and a vintage
Sure.
old leather kind of. And part of what I love about it is the case and how beat up it is and how, it's a life. And
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
life encapsulated in a material thing, but that tells a lot of stories. So, no, I feel like the internal should always be kept up, but like the inside of your body, try to keep
Right. Right.
organs going and keep them as healthy as you can. But everything else, I feel like tells the story of your life, and you should let it tell its own story.
Yeah, I hear you 100%. And what a cool story with that camera and the fact that you have the case there. That is so neat.
Oh,
That's
it's
so neat.
yeah, it's like the original like James Bond kind of camera, and he took it everywhere with him and stuck it in his pocket, and it just the adventures that thing has been on. That and the watch, never really left his side, and the stories that they can tell, some of which we don't want to hear, I'm sure, and some of which we would be engrossed in
Right.
in here, and would make a great Netflix series at this point.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, those things I think mean the most.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%.
Yeah,
And those things hold such, memories and cherished moments.
yeah, exactly.
Going back to hats, if you were going to wear a hat, what's the hat style you're going to pull?
That's a good question. For me, what it like most accessories and all clothing.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not so much what you're drawn to, but you can be drawn to something that doesn't look that good on you, or isn't that
Right.
flattering or
Sure.
proportionate for you. So again, like clothing or anything else, it has to work with what you have going on.
Indeed.
For me, I think the only two that kind of flatter whatever the hell it is I got going on here are two different kinds. One is sort of a newsboy cap,
Okay.
especially like in the fall and winter. That's always and or a sort of short brim fedora or a short brim Panama.
Nice. So
I
Panama
would
hats down
say,
here are really popular.
yeah, I'm sure. Well, you're in the climate for it for sure. But I would say those three are about the only things that remotely work on Monkey Boy here. But I think other things on other people look amazing. I know a lot of guys in the industry who really rock some amazing hats, and
Indeed.
I mean, wide brim for or like bringing back a '70s sort of Walt Frazier vibe, and it's amazing, and it looks amazing on them. I would look ridiculous, but they absolutely kill it. I love you know how they wear it with such ease and authenticity. There's
Hmm.
also a structural thing for both men and women
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
about a face, the shape of your head, the whole. It's like anything else. It's like clothing. It's really how it's proportionate to you.
Indeed. I love The Godfather, the movie.
Yes.
And that style was such an impression on me growing up that I
Yeah.
wanted to wear that. I wanted braces. I wanted high-waisted pants. I wanted the Homburg. I wanted overcoats.
Yeah.
Miami doesn't allow it, but I wanted it. And so
Yeah.
one of my first purchases when I started getting into my sartorial expression was a fedora and a Homburg. Um, the problem was I was very heavy set at the time, and it
Right.
looked horrendous.
Yeah.
And I mean, it looked really, really bad. And
Right.
I agree with you. If it's not going to fit the structure of what you're wearing, even your clothing, right? I mean, I noticed today your lapel with the fabric, with your ensemble
Thank
in
you.
general.
Thank you.
Um, if you're not wearing the right headpiece with that, it's just going to look really off.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. It all has to be proportional. Some guys come into our shop and they love the wide lapel look, and they love our whole vibe, and they, you know, we'll make anything. We do some slim lapels too, but
Mm-hmm.
they generally come in for a little bit of a certain kind of look.
Right.
And then, you know, they ask me as they're leaving, you know, oh, can I wear this with my skinny tie? And I'm like, no.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
you know, it just, and then it becomes, you know, a lesson of proportion, and you don't want this string hanging between two. You know,
Two nice
it's not
wide
a good,
lapels, right?
it's not a good look. You know, our mutual friend Chuck Pollard is a big fan of wide ties, and it's proportionate to the lapel he wears. I mean, you know, Chuck gets it in many ways,
Indeed.
and you know, it's about trying to teach. And once you show somebody, you know, proportion and why it works, and a lot of it becomes geometry and things like that.
Right.
They get it, you know, they sort of understand, and they follow along. But yeah, I think you really have to. But again, not, you know, the wide lapel thing doesn't look good on everybody. You know, we have some really like tall, skinny guys who come into the shop, and we try to tell them, you know, okay, maybe we want to pare it down for you.
Right,
You're
right.
like, you know, 6'5" and you weigh 150 pounds. You know, I mean, it's you know, it's a
Right,
thing.
right, right. That's hysterical.
Yeah,
You know, it's interesting how you're talking about the different body shapes, because I always joke, as I mentioned, being heavy set previously. There's big and tall stores, right? But there's no short and fat stores. And so when you
it's
have
true.
people with that body proportion who want to dress nice,
Yeah,
it's difficult to have something off the rack for that, right? Because
very.
especially off the rack, you're looking to kind of maximize who can wear that and who's going to purchase it.
Absolutely.
How do you face those challenges with your designs, your patterns, and things like that for, let's say, somebody that's in that type of scenario, a very heavy set or moderately heavy set person?
You know, the ironic thing is that off the rack clothing is really made for a very narrow, specific body type, which not a lot of people fall into, because it's
Right.
generally based, especially in men's clothing, it's generally based from the shoulder measurement. You
Hmm.
know, a guy who's a 42 or a 44 or a 40, it all comes down to the chest and the shoulders, but they don't take into account what can be going on in the rest of the body, which can be, you know, a whole
Right.
roller coaster ride. You
Yeah.
know, so
Mountains and
in
valleys
our
all over the
store,
place.
yeah, yeah. In our store, you know, we're very fortunate in that between myself and my business partner, who is the tailor,
Mhm.
Carl, we, between the two of us, we try to make guys understand that a lot of this is fooling the eye of the observer, you know, sitting across from you.
Mhm.
It's all about sort of visual tricks. So if you have that sort of body type where you're portly or stout or whatever, our main
Such kind
objective,
terminology.
yeah, oh, you know, politically correct. So basically, if we get a fat guy, you
There
know,
you
we
go.
try to
There
tell
you
him,
go.
you know, you have to go one of two ways. You have to either embrace it and, you know, throw out the rule book and do whatever you can, and don't even, or we make small adjustments, little tricks to slim you out, make you taller, or at least visually appear that way,
Hmm.
so that not only do you feel better, but you know, everybody who's around you, sort of, it gives them the impression that you're not as round, you're not as sort of vertically challenged, you're not, you know. So a lot
Right.
of that is giving them a waist and tapering a waist. Sometimes we'll build up a shoulder so it's a little bit more of a V shape.
Hmm.
I tell a lot of those guys to try to get into stripes, because the, you know, the vertical lines help them out a
Vertical
lot. You
stripes.
know, a lot, and there's a lot of like misconceptions out there. Guys come in who have that kind of body type, and they always say, you know, the most ridiculous things to me, like, "Oh, I'm too short for that," or "I'm too fat for that," or "I'm too," and I'm like, actually, no, it's just the opposite. You should be
Right.
wearing that to elongate you. You know, we'll do things like on a single-breasted, we'll drop the button stance a little lower so that you see more shirt, so it gives you a little bit more of a V. You know, there are all these things that we get to play with that the finished product, you know, they always, it never fails. They always come out of the dressing room saying the same thing once their first tryout. They're like a few inches taller, or their wife is there and she's like, oh my God, you know. And
she's there like this. Woo, is that my
exactly.
husband?
Well, we hope so anyway. You know, whatever goes on there. Anyway. But, and they're always amazed, and they're like, wow, you know, I've sort of shied away from that my whole sartorial life, but now I see, I'm like, oh yeah. And then they want to rebuild their wardrobe now with the knowledge that, you know, that's only going to help and enhance them.
Yeah. And you know, I love that you mentioned that, because when you go to a quality tailor, and whether it's you're starting off with a blank or you're going with something to be altered and tailored to fit, there's so many different things you can do to those garments. If you are, let's say, upper torso heavy or longer legs, things you can do, like you mentioned, with button stance, with pattern, with different things, you know, that can change the dimensions of what you're looking like. So for you, what is the ultimate goal when you're putting something together for a client? What is it? Are you looking to draw the attention up? Are you looking to make the whole silhouette?
I always tell people, think of it like this. Your face is the artwork. And it should always be the center of attention. Everything else is just the frame. It's how we frame you. But we have to frame you in a way that only enhances the artwork. There's nothing worse than seeing like a beautiful painting or a beautiful photograph in the most hideous frame you've ever seen. You know, it kills it. Like, you're like, oh my God, you know. Same thing with people in clothing. It's an art in some ways of maximizing everybody's assets and taking away from what's not so great. So we sort of hide them and bury them and accentuate what is fabulous and great so that it complements the artwork.
Gotcha.
And it's a balance. It's a lot of it's proportion and you know, it can be tricky sometimes, but generally I have to say, and there's some incredible tailors out there and incredible clothiers and bespoke clothing creators who do an amazing job as well. I think what separates us a little bit is that we don't get locked into any one particular style. You know, sometimes you'll go to a tailor or a bespoke suit maker or a clothier, and they want to put you in their stuff. Now, if you look good in our stuff, I'm happy to put you in it. But if you don't, what we do is we reconfigure it in every conceivable way.
Oh, wow.
So that you look your best, not that you look good in our stuff. Right. Because then our stuff walks in the room before you do. And you don't want that. You're dead in the water. So what, you know, if someone walks into a room in our stuff and they're like, oh my God, amazing suit, we failed. What we want them to say is when they walk in the room, like, wow, you look amazing. Then we nailed it, you know, because it became about them rather than our clothes.
What an amazing approach. I mean, you know, there's so many companies out there that want their product to be noticed, right? They emblazon it with their logo, or they have their own little thing that they do to it to, you know, make it pop with a color or a pattern or something like that. For you to be willing to take that back seat speaks volumes to your approach to style.
In our shop, we have like no ego whatsoever. The only ego we have in there is that we feel like the quality of our things surpasses the majority of what's out there, especially at the price point. But, you know, I'm very fortunate to be partnered with a really good friend of mine who is a tailor, comes from a family of tailors, and, you know, from a design standpoint, I can put it together, but what helps is that from a proportional standpoint, he can look at it, and between the two of us, we can look at it and see what's not going to work and what is going to work, and for that particular person. So they sort of get the best of both worlds. They get it from a design standpoint, but also from an almost architectural standpoint.
Right.
In that, you know, whenever I draw something up, you know, he's always there rolling his eyes and telling me, you know, we can't do that. And I'm like, sure we can. We can just do it, you know. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to, you know, reset this, and the shoulder's going to, and the sleeves are going to have to be rotated, and the whole, and, you know, by the time we're done, he's like recreated, you know, in like Frankenstein's lab, this piece that he thought was like insane,
right.
But then it turns out it actually worked for the person. And you know, the most satisfaction we get is people who say, "Wow, you know, I gotta say, this has been the best experience, and I look amazing, and I want to throw out all my old stuff." And,
right.
and get, you know, it's you do become addicted to it, and then once you sort of get it right, you're you know, become like a drug. Yeah,
my next piece, gotta get my next piece.
Totally, yeah. You're like, like you're jonesing for the next. You know,
When's my
it's
fitting?
not pretty sometimes.
You know, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up about the tailor. I was speaking with another person in one of these chats as well, and I'm very much into barbecue. And we were talking about barbecue food and things like that, as well as mixed into the conversation about our styles and things like that. He mentioned, and I love this, that there's 3 things that we need in our lives, right? A good butcher, a good stylist, and a good tailor. So with that, what else do you need?
That's the golden circle. That is all you need in life.
And so with the tailor, and you go in and you say, you know what, I want this double-breasted suit, I want this, I want that, I want this. How much do you take a step back and let the tailor's, how can we say, style dictate what you're going to wear in comparison to what you believe is going to look best on you?
That is an excellent question. I have to tell you, before, you know, Carl and his family have been making my clothes for like 15 years. So, you know, but prior to that, I would go to tailors who it was always a no. Or if it was a yes, they yesed me and did what they wanted anyway, you know, in their own sort of style, which again is like sometimes forcing a square peg into a round hole. You know, you're basically wearing their clothes. You're not wearing the clothes that were made for you. Through all that experience, you know, I was able to start designing stuff that I knew would work for me, and then I would just give Carl the headache of constructing, you know, which he did. But it's very important that you go to a tailor that listens to you and imparts their own opinion as to where they may be able to correct you, where you might be going down a wrong path. You know, we get, for instance, some really big guys who want to come in and see some suit they saw in GQ with like a 1-inch lapel, and I'm like, you know, you're 6'4", 240.
You're as wide as the doorway. It's not gonna
totally
work.
And you want me to put you in, you know. And look, at the end of the day, you know, it's a delicate balance, because at the end of the day, the customer is always right. You know, you have to make them happy and you have to give them what they want. But we would be remiss if we didn't impart a certain amount of opinion to, you know, and then it's up to them. We show them what might not work and what we think would work. And then it's up to them. You know, now that you have the knowledge, it's up to you to apply it. But I think it is very important to find somebody, who listens, but also who is able to be flexible and yet strike the balance of saying, you may want to think about something else. and
Right.
you may want, and just sort of steer them in a direction.
Right. Right. A
Yeah,
positive
so
little
it's a tricky
nudging.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can imagine. I
it
can
is.
imagine.
But I would say, we're, knock on wood, we're very fortunate in that, I would say 90% of our clients come in um, wanting our sort of judgment and opinion. Well, they may have an idea, oh, I need this, or I need an all white suit, or I need, something like
Right.
that. But we sort of uh, are left to our own devices. We hear it all the time. They're like, just do what you think is best. And they always seem to be pretty happy. So we're
That's
very
great.
fortunate. Yeah,
That's
we're very
fantastic.
fortunate in that way. Very, very fortunate.
I know I've given headaches to people when I've gone before to do a coat or some pants, and I'm sitting in front of the swatch book and I'm flipping through and I can't envision it. And it was very difficult for, I can think of two instances right off the top of my head where it was very difficult of them to help me envision it as well. How do you go over that hurdle? Because I can imagine I'm not the only one that has that issue.
It is also an excellent question. I would love to tell you that this was a premeditated stroke of brilliance on our part, but I think if anybody who knows us knows that was certainly not the case. But what was sort of fortunate for us is that, you go to a lot of these places and it's very hard a lot of the time for people to pick something or envision something from a swatch of fabric that's big, that
Right.
big. So what we did is, and largely through our Instagram, you know, they've seen so much of it on a human body, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what we do. It's much easier for them to envision what it actually looks like. And
Right.
we've tried to photograph those things in some real world settings, not in a studio with perfect lighting and,
A green
like
screen and
on the street, right?
right.
Exactly. On the street and on, real world situations. And we made a very conscious effort, even on our website, to when we show a piece we've created, we obviously show it on the mannequin because, you want to see it. And we try to do it as close up as possible so people can sort of get an idea of fabric and texture.
Sure.
Right below that, you can scroll right down to it on a human body. Now, unfortunately, that body happens to be mine and me, which if we could do it all over again would probably be a different mode of operation. But they at least get to see it, how it moves, what it looks like, the shape, and it's like looking at a much bigger swatch. And in this day and age, what's great is now there are digital ways to like put
Right.
things on people and whatever, and that may be something that we do in the future. But for right now, we're sort of like still in the analog mode, and we just sort of show
Right.
it on somebody, or sometimes we'll have people who come into the shop looking for a suit that I happen to be wearing that day, and they're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're wearing it. Now I get to see it. What I want it. I want it. Or we'll make a slight adjustment to it for the. Or if they're even remotely sort of my size, I rip it right off and put it on them. And that way they can get a sense for what it really looks like. I think the real world photographs on both
Hmm.
our website and our Instagram and Pinterest and all those things have helped enormously because I think it's very difficult for a lot of people just to look through a swatch book and
Yeah.
sort of, just say, oh my God, yeah, I see that with. And then we get into the area where sometimes they love the swatch, but I tell them for the style you're looking for, it's sort of wrong. But we can redesign it, whether it's a coat or whatever, pants or whatever they want to do, we can redesign it to sort of match that fabric, which is the way I design completely ass backwards. I do, most.
Elaborate on that, because I'm sure people here would love to hear what entails the design process. I was going to ask this a little bit later on as well. do you design for like the style that you like, or do you say, you know what, the general public might like this better? So,
That's a different question. Now we are into my greatest, the thing I wrestle with the most, and my
mhm,
greatest conundrum. If I could design everything that I love, we'd probably be out of business in 6 months.
you think so? I think your
I
style
do.
is amazing, and I think a
I
lot
do.
of people agree with that.
I am beyond humbled and honored, my friend. Thank you. But
You're welcome.
I feel like, you know, you have to, in business, you have to strike sort of a delicate balance. And I think most designers will tell you this. It's not always about designing what you love. There has to be a segment, and it's a different percentage for different designers
Right.
of what is going to sell. We have two, it's very bifurcated. We have two different kinds of clients. We have the sort of very corporate lawyerly,
Right.
like
Wall Street
blue and gray.
lawyer. Yeah. Yeah.
Blue and gray. I want blue and gray. I want a no more than a 4-inch lapel. I want,
Mhm.
you know, classic, which there's nothing wrong with that. I can do
Sure.
that all day long. That's going to sell to a certain segment of society.
And
Then
then
we
the
have
New
the
York
other
underground
group.
scene.
We have the other group that is literally they want to go as crazy as possible, and the bolder pattern that they see me in, the more they love it, and the more, you know, they're drawn to it, whatever. So it is a delicate balance. I feel like you have to have a percentage that you like but don't love,
Hmm.
but you know is going to sell.
Hmm.
That's just part of being in business. I would say that's for us, that's probably maybe 15% of what we do. And the other 85 is, you know, I just love it. We're going to do it, you know, let's just see where it goes. And we've been fortunate in that. Look, you know, we've always said from the beginning, I've always been shocked by the amount, our number one sellers are sort of the more bolder, crazier stuff we have out there.
Really? Wow,
And
that's
that has
neat.
always been a shock to me. I mean, I have to say, you know, it takes some balls, man, you know, to wear some of the stuff that we put out there. And, you know, it does. Um, but I have to say, you know, those are the ones that have really moved as much as possible. And they've gone out all over the world, not, you know, some strange places in this country I never thought I would see, you know, in like, you know, whether it be like Nebraska or I'm like,
Right, right.
okay, you
Really?
know,
Wow, okay.
yeah. But then, you know, we send it to Dubai and Switzerland and whatever, and I get it a little more that, you know, or Europe, all over Europe. But yeah, I think it's to each his own. You know, as long as it's authentic to you and it's your style and you're comfortable with it, you know, we'll do it all day long. But designing is a tricky thing in that, and here's why I do it backwards. Most designers will sketch something out and find a fabric or fabrics that accompany the piece.
Hmm.
We are completely opposite the way we do it. We see the fabric and then I design the piece around the fabric, which
Interesting.
is completely backwards from most, because sometimes the fabric just sort of talks to you and
Hmm.
you see it and you can envision it in 2 minutes and you're like, oh, and then you know, and then Carl say, oh, what if we belt it and what if we, you know, and I'm like, well, that's good too, and then, you know, great.
Right, right.
And then you sort of pare it down, you throw a couple designs out, and then you finally get the right piece. And that's sort of how we do it, because I feel like I don't want to force people into our designs,
Hmm.
but I feel like if you do it from everybody can love fabric or a certain fabric. And then once they're there, we can design it around them in that fabric.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, you know, fabric goes such a long way in how you wear it, what you want to wear, and if you're ever going to take it out of the closet again. It could be the nicest design, shape, and format, but if it's not a fabric that you like or feels good or looks good on you,
Right.
whether it be the texture, the weight, whatever it might be, it's going to sit in the closet, and I'm sure that's the last thing you want.
I always tell people, I'm like, look, don't wear this because you love the idea of it. Wear it because you're going to love wearing this a couple times a week, you know. Or like for us, what we try to do is we try to get people to break up a lot of the things that they buy. I don't want you coming in for just one suit, or, you know, that's why we make a lot of adjustments to things to sometimes casual it up a little bit so that they can't break it up. You know, if they buy a suit, I said, wear the jacket with jeans, you know, or wear the pants with a t-shirt, or, you know, have fun with it. Don't be so regimented in, oh, it's just a suit. You know, I would rather see you get more bang for your buck. And you know, I always, and when they're in the shop, what I try to do is show, they get one suit and I give them 5 different outfits over the one suit. So that way they can see, oh my God, I can wear it with this. And you know, you literally like triple your wardrobe without spending too much money, and, you know, filling your closet with stuff that's like a one-time wear.
So let's say somebody's walking in off the street. They haven't, you know, really gone into the world of buying suits and that sort of thing. They are a very casual dresser, t-shirt, maybe button down, every once in a while, jeans, tennis shoes, that sort of thing. But they want a wardrobe. They want to walk out with something that's going to get them through a week's worth of work. What are you recommending to them? What's their first purchase? What should it be? And it could be multiple garments, but what would you recommend to somebody?
You know, I mean, for a guy, there are some staple pieces every guy has to have, whether it's, you know, a navy suit or a navy blazer, some crisp white shirts, you know, a gray suit. But all these things you can design in a way to break them up. So wear the navy jacket with the gray pants, and what, you know, those staple pieces are what you curate a wardrobe around. People who come to my home, you know, they always do the same thing. They want to go run and look in the closet, you know.
Let's see what you got here.
Yeah, totally. It's like the vault, you know. And I always get the same reaction. They're like, wow, you know, you actually don't have as much clothing as I thought you would have. And I said, no, because what I do is I mix and match it. You know, that way you don't have to like go crazy and fill your closet with stuff you're never going to wear, or that you forgot you had, or, you know, still has the tags hanging on it, God forbid. But I would say, you know, especially for a guy, it's, you know, a good pair of jeans, crisp white shirts, a navy blazer, a navy suit, a gray suit, a good pair of shoes, a good pair of casual shoes. And through that, I mean, honestly, if I packed that in a suitcase, I could literally live anywhere for a year.
Yeah, the interchangeability of garments is really key to extending your wardrobe. I think I remember, can't remember where I heard it, but I heard something along the lines of, if you buy, let's say, 3 suits and you just wear that suit, the longevity is, let's say, 5 years, 10 years for a good garment. If you have 3 suits and a blazer and a pair of slacks, and you interchange the tops with the bottoms, now you're extending it exponentially to almost 50 years, because the wear, the sweating, the humidity, that sort of, you know, wear and tear on it. And
absolutely. I have to say, absolutely. You know, that's why sometimes when people come into the shop, especially guys, they want to come in, they want to buy like their first piece, the craziest piece we have. And I'm like, okay, no problem, but understand, you know, the limited wear of it. I can show you how to break it up a little bit, but I would rather see you go with something basic that I can get 10 outfits out of than the craziest piece that I'm only going to get 5. Because that way I know you really use your clothes, you know. And then,
absolutely.
Then they sort of, you know, they take a deep breath and they're like, yeah, maybe you're right. You know? Yeah, and then they come back and then they get the crazy piece, you know.
Right.
But
yeah, once you've got your basics in, Now you
Totally.
start to expand out.
You need, it's like building a house, right? You need a good foundation. And then once you have the good foundation, what you do above that is, you know, totally up
Right.
to you and your own. You can go as high and as crazy as you want to go.
Exactly, exactly. And so you got into this, and I remember seeing a previous interview that you did where you talked about because of your real estate is what got you into this, into the style design consulting and that sort of thing. But for yourself, what got you into your sartorial experience? How did that start? When did that start?
When I would probably say in the 90s, I'm probably dating myself, but in the 90s,
So are we
you
talking
know,
about the
when,
Armani big suits with the Wall Street look, or
no, that was more, that was a little more 80s. As we moved into the 90s, what was very big was grunge.
mhm.
Grunge was huge, you know. It was flannel shirts and ripped jeans and whatever, and I was rocking that too, you know, for a while, like we all were. But I think what happened as the world started to get more casual,
Mhm.
I started to get more formal
Interesting.
for two reasons. One is the casualness started to bleed into more than just clothing. It started to bleed into sort of a societal thing where people
Indeed.
started uh, losing their manners,
Mhm.
losing respect for other people. The sort of looseness and casualness started to really um, become pervasive in society. And that part I really didn't like.
Mhm.
So, whether it was conscious or unconsciously, I started to become more formal to sort of bring some of that back to sort of like raise it to a higher standard.
Sure.
But all that being said, I have to say, since I was a kid, my father certainly was an inspiration in that way, in that he was always well done. My mother had incredible style, so I was always around it. But I have to say, you know, probably the biggest influence was sort of old Hollywood and old
Mhm.
movies. I would look at Fred Astaire and Cary Grant and they
So good.
always looked amazing to me. And I feel like if they were walking down the street today, they would look just as amazing. And
Indeed. Indeed.
it's sort of just the consistency of how good they looked. And they're also, and this may be sort of, you know, because I'm sort of a dinosaur, they looked like men to me.
Yeah.
And in that era, men looked like men and women looked like women. We're in an era now where it's more boys and girls than it is men and women. And I feel like there's a lot of boys pretending to be men and a lot of girls pretending to be women.
Mhm.
And they're not. The clothes don't do that. It helps, but you actually have to live that life. Live the
Right.
life of a woman or live the life of a man
Mhm.
and all the things that go with it, the responsibilities and the treating other people with respect and living that life. A lot of that has sort of faded today. So as we move forward and as it is now, this is sort of my show of respect to the world and good manners out there in the universe.
Indeed.
You know, if you're a woman who wants to flaunt your boobs, that's a choice and that's okay. And that's, you know, you can get on Instagram and you can become an influencer and you can do all kinds of things with that. And I don't pass any judgment, but if you look at that the way that is today, and then
Mhm.
you look at old movies from Hollywood from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, there's an elegance that existed then
The
that was
elegance.
sort of put out there
Absolutely.
into the world that is sort of severely lacking today.
Mhm.
And, you know, I guess it's in my own small, tiny little way, trying to hold on to some semblance of that and show people that, you know, there's another way you may want to consider, you know, it may not get as many likes on Instagram, but you may live a better life. You know, it's a choice.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you. That era, as far as dress went. You know, you watched guys going out for a Sunday stroll and they were in a suit, a top hat, and they were dressed what we consider, you know, dressed up, where that was just dressed back then. And I absolutely love that. I saw a quote one time from Fred Astaire, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it was something like, you know, when I get a new suit, I throw it against the wall about 10 times to get that square look out of it.
He always did. He was very big with going to English tailors, who notoriously were working with very heavy cloths because of the climate there, and he would literally beat up his suits, throw them against the wall, and he would take a baseball bat and just absolutely hammer the hell out of them to give them more of a, and you know, let's face it, it worked for him.
It worked really well. I mean, I saw something one time where he took a tie and tied it around his waist. Now, granted, he needed the waistline in order to do that, but he was able to use a tie. He was able to use a tie as a belt. I mean, talk about a statement and your own confidence in your style. And that to me.
We do that a lot for women in the shop. We'll, you know, if they want to sort of accessorize their thing, or maybe even wear something of their husband's or something of our, you know, we take our ties and we cinch it around their waist and do it as a belt. And that's total homage to old Freddie.
Back to the classic styles.
Totally.
Do you like that formal, you know, let's say do you like ultra formal wear, tuxedos, tails?
Let's face it, you know, there's a reason why men get married in tuxedos, because, you know, on that day you want to look your best, right? So you go with the most basic coloration that there is, black and white, right?
Indeed.
So,
right.
Yeah, there's nothing more elegant than that, especially in the right setting. And there's really it's sort of the height of elegance, you know, in its own way, in all kinds of settings and in all kinds of cultures. You know, we associate formal wear here in the States, you know, black and white tuxedo, and certainly in England and parts of Europe, it's the same way. But sort of the formal wear in all different parts of the world is much different and much more colorful. You go to India and you go to the colors.
The colors are so beautiful.
Are phenomenal, and that's their formal wear, and I love that too. So, you know, all formal wear is amazing in its own way, whether it's the sort of black and white, no color, or it's so vibrant, and so, you know, it's amazing.
I was watching something on TV the other day, and they were showing a Kenyan wedding, and the colors were phenomenal. The outfits were, I mean, and the elegance of everything, the way it was all put together, the formality of it all, it was just an event that I wish I could have been in the audience for, because just the eye candy of all the clothing coming by was just phenomenal.
Phenomenal. I know it really, and the use of color and the combinations, and it's different cultures all over the world who have grown up with color are so advanced in their ways of color matching and color blending.
I'm so happy you just brought that up.
They have like a master's degree by the time they're 10 years old of how to, you know, blend things, and it's phenomenal. It's you know, I always look at those kind of cultures in awe of, you know, and it's just it comes so naturally, and it's just so ingrained in the culture that they're so adept at it. It's amazing.
It really is amazing. And, you know, I'm so happy you brought that up, because it was something that I wanted to talk to you about as well, in that when somebody comes in and their complexion is a particular shade or a color, you know, we talk about whether it's you're matching your clothing to go, you know, 2 spots on the color wheel either direction, and there's general rules. How do you approach that? Is there a structure to you looking at the person, not only their body style, but their complexion, hair color, facial hair, that sort of thing?
Very important.
And what avenues do you take to, you know, kind of putting together that whole picture?
you know, like you have 4 food groups.
Mm-hmm.
There's sort of, it's the same in general terms in people and their coloration. There's sort of high contrast people, low contrast people, people who have more pink in their skin, people who have more olive in their skin, and you have to sort of mix and match what enhances them. Generally, it's sort of what goes opposite to them. So you take someone who is very low contrast, which, you know, maybe they're blonde and very fair skinned and sort of, you know, if you put them in very sort of pale, washed out colors, it's going to wash them out even more. So you sort of, people who have a lot of olive in their skin, if you put them in olive colors, then, you know, it tends to wash them out.
Right.
So you look and you first get a base of which food group they're in, you know, they're in high contrast, you know, sort of like Afro-American, if they're very dark skinned and what, you know, black and white will look amazing, bold color looks amazing, you know, things that really, you know, sort of pop. So you get a base from that, and then it's a question of just picking those fabrics, narrowing it down, and then a lot of, you know, people make huge mistakes, especially men, in picking things, and when they buy ties and when they pick out fabrics, they look at them on a table horizontally.
Right. Right.
Big mistake.
Right.
No, because unless you're lying down in your suit and or tie, that's the only time it's going to look like that, you know?
Right.
So what we always try to do is take people out of the shop and onto the street and hold it vertically so we can see how the light hits it and how it hits them. You know, so that it's flattering and gives them sort of like an uplighting kind of effect. Because just like when you paint a wall, you know, paint always gets darker and changes shades as you put it on the wall versus the swatch you saw in the store. It's the same with fabrics and people's coloration. You know, you got to hold it up to them,
how it reflects onto them
vertically, and how it's gonna enhance them or detract. You know, there's a lot of times where people will look at something on the table and like, oh my God, I love this. I'm like, let's see how it looks. You know, but you know. And you throw the fabric around, and they're like, oh, I hate it, you know, and you're like, yeah, you know, maybe
we'll start this conversation again.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's funny. So, you know, I've got, like I mentioned earlier, some BB King, Eric Clapton playing in the background. I love to have music on.
Yeah.
I love having music on, and we've talked before, and I mentioned to you, I'm into barbecue. I love doing that as well, crossing the two communities together. When I'm cooking, I've got particular music on. When I'm reading, I've got something on. When I'm having these conversations, I've got something on. What do you have on? I presume you have a regimen of working out, of getting ready, of cooking, of designing, whatever it might be. Does your music change with each event, or is it just kind of like one kind of type?
It's definitely, I would say, more mood based than what I'm doing based. You know, sometimes it's sort of integral in bringing you up or bringing you down. So, you know, if I'm too hyped up, then it's jazz, right? Because that sort of, you know, will mellow me out, or even classical. If I'm sort of too sort of sedated, you know, then it's a lot of like R&B and
coffee and Motown.
Blues. Yeah, totally. You know, and you gotta have a mix. And then sometimes, you know, like you're in the mood for a bagel or some barbecue chicken. It's really mood based. Sometimes you're in the mood for Clapton. Sometimes you're in the mood for BB King, or sometimes you're in the mood for, you know, Anita Baker. I mean, it runs, you know, or Billie Holiday, or it runs the gamut. But I think it's really more mood based. I will tell you this, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, music is always on in my house, and it's always on in the store. The only time music doesn't play a part in my life, literally, is when I'm sleeping.
Same
and
here.
Even then, you know, sometimes there's a soundtrack to my day. You know, it's probably like something you heard during the day. but
Mm-hmm.
then you're like, you know, what? Why am I hearing Frank Sinatra? And, you know, and you know, it has nothing
Right,
to do with
right.
his dream. But generally, I would say, you know, like so people will come over to my house and they're like, "Oh, you left your music on," you know, and I'm like, "Well, no, it just never goes off." You know,
Right, right.
it just yeah, music inspires and helps you remember things, and it's an amazing tool and amazing art.
Indeed. The other
Yeah,
night, it was funny. We were sitting around the dinner table, and I've got some Etta James playing. And
one of the
um,
best.
I looked at my daughter. I have three daughters,
Sure.
13, 14, and 18 years old.
God
And
bless.
it's why I at one
Yeah,
point I had this beautiful head of hair,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it,
yeah, man. Yeah, man.
um,
Yeah.
but we're sitting there talking, song comes on, and I look at them and I go, I've got $5 who can never tell me, who can tell me the title of the song. All three of them chimed in and gave me the right answer, and it was the proudest dad moment I've ever had. I was like, you
That's
know
a
what?
proud
You,
moment, man.
you done a good job.
That's a proud moment.
I was
Yeah.
so happy. Music
Yeah.
is such an integral part. Rhythm, sound,
Oh,
it,
look,
it
man.
just, it dictates so much.
And a lot of it, it can dictate your day. You can be having a Johnny Lee Hooker day, or you can be having a Stevie Wonder day, or you can be
Hmm.
having, you know, an Etta James day, or
Indeed.
it's you know, it's definitive to both your mindset and your mood. And you know, it's a great tool for when you need balance. You
Right.
know, when it gives you passion, and there's nothing better than that.
Yeah. And so with the music, I was talking about, eating dinner and that sort of thing. We talked about barbecue earlier. Are
Yeah.
you a fan of barbecue? And if so, what's your go-to barbecue plate?
Listen, man, anybody who's actually watched me eat will tell you, A, it's not a pretty picture, and B, barbecue is probably definitely it's top five. You know, on
Nice.
certain it
Okay.
depends on it can hold the number one slot for a while, but two very different kinds of barbecue. Now
Okay.
there's Texas barbecue,
Hmm.
and then there's like St. Louis kind of Missouri barbecue, which are very different.
Hmm.
But basically, for me, if you put barbecue on, or you put barbecue sauce on a grill and a piece of wood, I'll eat it. I will go to town. I
I
barbecue.
knew I knew we were kindred spirit.
Yeah,
I get it
yeah,
now. I
of
now
course, man, of
understand.
course. Yeah, no, literally, you can put it on any fruit and vegetable. You could literally, man, it's going down. Barbecue, one of my favorite things in the world. What kind of I would have to say probably barbecue chicken,
Hmm.
um, corn on a grill, barbecue style,
Yes,
corn on the
sir.
cob barbecue is I definitely tend to veer more towards like Southern barbecue,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, whether it be Texas, Louisiana, kind of almost Creole, kind of that anything, but definitely probably more Texas style
Yep.
is like my, no pun intended, bread and butter. Yeah.
And are you a sauce fan or a no sauce fan?
More sauce, the better.
You want it dripping off.
But no, like literally showering it. Yeah. No, absolutely. But it has to be the right sauce too.
Right. It has to it's much like, and so this is the conversations I have a lot of time with guys in the sartorial community, is
Yeah.
that barbecue, in my opinion, is so much like dress, right? It's things have to complement each other. The
Yeah.
rub, what your spices and seasoning that you're putting on whatever protein or
Absolutely.
vegetable you're going to make has to complement it. The
Yeah.
sauce then, right? While the standard basic that everybody knows is that sweet, sticky kind of sauce, but then
Yeah.
you've got different regions, right? You've got the Carolina, which is a vinegar-based, thin, very liquidy,
Yes.
um, with a mustard base rather than a ketchup base,
Right.
and it just changes everything as far as the profile
I
goes
agree.
that hits your palate.
Especially, I feel like on meat, it
Hmm.
has to be a sauce that enhances the flavor of the meat,
Hmm.
you know, and brings out, you know, the flavors of the meat, whether it's a marinade or, you know, are you putting it on chicken or you're putting it on steak or whatever, ribs, whatever you're doing. that it enhances, and complements the flavor of the meat, for sure.
Indeed.
It's
Absolutely.
it's a good tie with a good suit. It's gotta work
Indeed. Yeah.
in unison.
It's gotta work together, or else
Yeah,
you've got
yeah,
this disjointed thing happening.
yeah.
We've seen that in style, and we've seen and we've seen that
And we've
in
seen that
food as
in
well.
barbecue. Yeah, yeah. They generally go hand in hand. Yeah.
And so when you're having that chicken and the grilled corn, what's the drink of preference with it?
Um, Depends. It depends what season you're eating it in.
Ah,
I would say,
good point.
if you're doing it in the middle of summer,
Hmm.
an ice cold beer and barbecue is like heaven on earth.
Yeah.
If it's winter time, you want something, to me, a little heavier and a little smokier. Something like a bourbon Manhattan with cherry twist
Hey.
is on the rocks is probably a little slice of heaven.
Um. Um.
I'm actually not a big drinker at all,
Right.
but if you're gonna go to town on some barbecue and you need, a
Right.
sidecar with it, yeah, yeah,
So
that's where I'm going.
I've been shifting a little bit because I've noticed this really fantastic trend happening with barbecue in general, where it's becoming elevated, and it's becoming semi-formal in its presentation and its consumption as well. I have been taking caviar and cold smoking it and including it with. I just made this garlic whip the other night with
Check you out.
a
Yeah.
garlic butter whip with a cold smoked caviar infused into it, and put it on some bread and just have a piece of toasted bread with that spread on it. And it is to die for.
Bro,
Smoked,
you just made me so hungry. I
smoked
can't,
deviled
I can't
eggs.
even,
I like to take these classic, elegant dishes and barbecue them up. Tomorrow, I'm going to
oh,
do a cold smoked and then hot smoked beef Wellington, and I'm going to smoke every ingredient of it, and then smoke it as a final component and see how that goes. I just think that there's so many options here because,
hell yeah.
unfortunately, people hear barbecue and they think, and not, I love it. I'll take a barbecue smile anytime, a barbecue sauce smile.
Yeah.
We joke in the barbecue community, we joke about beards, calling them sauce catchers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, it's what we're there for.
Uh,
And I get a lot of interest because of the fact that I like to dress up and have the barbecue or prep the barbecue and cooking it that way. And it's just
oh,
fun for me to be able to mix the two together. So
dangerous, but good. Yeah.
it is dangerous. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I attempted it, and I had my my chimney of coal, and I went to go dump it out, and the heat started coming up, and I thought something was going to catch fire. I was like, somebody turn on a hose
They're
for the
like,
next time. Yeah,
well,
we're going to stand
they're
at the
like,
ready.
yeah, your suit is hot, bro. Yeah,
It gets warm,
yeah,
and you're buttoned up, and it's hot out. I'm in
yeah,
Miami, so it's hot
yeah.
all the time, and you're buttoned up, and you're out there trying to prep something, and you're dripping through, but it's just enjoyable to me, and especially with COVID
Great.
that happened, and you were talking about the
Yeah,
dress down effect. Um,
yeah,
we've even got now, sweatpants that are tailored,
yeah.
and these different things that are happening. And I get it that everybody has their own style and whatnot. I am definitely more of a classically styled interest.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
but I could see where somebody's personal style would say, you know what, I want to wear that and I want to do that. Is there a style rule, in your opinion, that's just a hard line that you don't cross? Is there anything that you
No,
would say, you know what, this just can't happen?
no. There are things I really don't like, but I would never be presumptuous enough to say that it can't happen or shouldn't happen. I mean, there's a lot of things that I detest. Uh, I mean, the most glaring example probably is when all the untuck it thing started going on. You don't want to get me started on that,
I
and
could
and
see
I
it in
don't.
your eyes. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not poo-pooing the guy's business.
Sure.
and what he's done, and I wish him all the success in the world. But man, you know,
Yeah. Tuck the shirt.
and it goes into that thing that I don't particularly like is, that sort of sloppy, I don't care kind of, trying to be cool thing. I got to say, if that's how you're doing it and appealing to the masses, because people are getting lazier and, and if you're too lazy to tuck in your shirt and you're like, well, no, you go out to dinner and like, let's say there's 4 guys at the table and they're all wearing the exact same thing, the jeans with the untucked shirt, some really bad shoes. And I'm like, how is that working for you?
Right.
Honestly, on a
Right.
on a daily, God Almighty. But anyway, just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it's a hard stop. It should be, banned from the face of the earth. If that happened, would I be upset? No.
Right. Maybe
But
not.
no, but it's not for me to say everybody's got their own things. I mean, honestly, we have some people coming to the store who you would never think would, they got pink hair and a bone through their nose, but I gotta say, I love it because it's authentically them.
Sure.
They wear it like a second skin, and like what you see is what you get. That I love. What I don't love is this like sheep following, a trend,
Yes.
and let's all untuck our shirts. Get the, I want to give them a smack, but
Right. A
I
backhand with
digress.
rings.
Yeah, with brass knuckle. But at the end of the day, it's not for me to say. It's what you want to do. If you want to be a sheep and a follower, then you go rock that thing. But if you want to be a man and look like a man, tuck your damn shirt in.
There you go. There you go. And the whole look, you brought up shoes. And we talk a lot about your clothing and everything else, and there's nothing worse than seeing a fantastically dressed person and you gaze down at their shoes. And for me, a properly polished shoe with a right shine
Yep.
for what the shoe should have on it, and the condition of the shoe.
No, absolutely.
One of the things I was talking earlier about was my grandfather's influence on me. And he always said, you can determine the man by his shoe. And 100%. Is that something that you sell as well, shoes? And
oh yeah,
not,
yeah.
okay.
We have a shoemaker in Spain that we deal with that, will design the shoe and then they craft it for us.
Nice.
It's sort of like building a house. It's the foundation, right?
Yeah.
You can tell very wise words by your very wise grandfather to tell you that, that's how it starts.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a guy's shoe, you can tell where he's been or where he's going. And that tells you a lot about the man in particular. And you could have the most finely crafted bespoke suit known to man, here up in a fine dress shirt and a, very expensive watch or whatever. If your shoes aren't, in keeping with that, finely crafted, and give you the foundation that's what you're built from the ground up, then you're not dressed at all. You're just literally sort of faking it.
Yeah. And I know
shoes are everything. And you don't need, I always tell this to guys because they want to come in, they want to buy, 10, 15 pair of shoes. I'm like, well, slow down, cowboy. What you really need, once you get like 3 really good pair right now.
What are 3 really good pair, by the way?
Yeah,
what are 3 really good pair?
Yeah, absolutely. And just have them build that foundation, and then we'll expand from there. But, you don't need to go crazy. You just need to get the best that you can afford.
And so for you, if you've got somebody coming in and they're like, you know what, I want to get those foundation 3 shoes, what are you going to recommend to them?
I always thought, depending on what their lifestyle is, I feel like you have to. I'm not a big lover of black shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of fall into that camp that they're really only for weddings or funerals.
Is that like a black suit as well?
Well, black suit, you're going to wear a black suit. That's okay. I'm actually not a fan of black suits, but that's a whole other conversation. Again, I feel like they're for weddings and funerals, right?
Gotcha.
And
Yep.
black shoes are the same way, or they're for cops, you know. But I know, you know, guys like black shoes, and we certainly sell them and whatever. When they always ask for a black shoe, like try charcoal gray. You know, it's more versatile. You can wear it with different things, and you get, you know. So I generally try to tell them that. But I always say, you know, get a lace up, get a monk strap, get a formal shoe, and one boot. With those, you can really go anywhere. You know, you can throw a loafer in there, but with that basic foundation, you're set.
And so with the monk strap, are you going single or double?
Depends on the last of the shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Certain lasts lend themselves better to double, and certain lasts lend themselves better to single. It also proportionally on a guy plays a role in it too. I generally find bigger men look better in single monk, and a thinner guy, a little more slight, a little, you know, trimmer build, they can do both, but they can also rock a double monk a little easier.
How do you feel about?
I feel like proportionally, especially like if you have big legs, something about and it has to be a sizable monk strap. You know, I don't like a one skinny little monk strap.
Right.
Not good. But you know, like with a decent sized buckle and, you know, sort of a chunk, more of an old English kind of look.
Right.
Whether it be in suede or it be in like a chocolate leather or whatever. Generally on bigger guys with bigger legs or they're heavy set, it tends to look a little better to my eye.
Do you find, you know, for me in general, I've always been just petrified of suede. Do you find many people to be that way? And if so, what advice would you give somebody regarding suede and the care and the maintenance?
I don't feel like they're sort of petrified of suede. I feel like a lot of people associate it only with cold weather, which I never really got. But you know, I feel like you can wear suede whenever you want to wear suede. I don't like all the rules that go with, you know, style. Sometimes they try to like jam it down your throat. No, I happen to love suede. In some ways, it's depending on the kind of shoe, it's almost preferable. You know, like a suede loafer is always elegant and always, you know, it just looks right on a loafer and whatever. But no, I would say suede. Don't be afraid. Don't shun it. And I kind of even like, you know, in some ways like leather. I don't always like it so pristine, especially a suede boot.
Yeah,
a suede boot that has some scuff to it and has some, you know, I kind of like that. I kind of, you know, it's a good look. I kind of like it's a little beat up, a little, you know, it's been well traveled. It's good.
Right. It's got character.
It's got character. That's
there you go.
Yeah.
And so then with the shoes, you mentioned about loafers, and you know, there's that whole thing about socks over the calf, no seams, that sort of thing. How about no socks? The look of no socks. Is there a place tailored with no socks, in your opinion?
Absolutely, yeah, there definitely is. I'm not the, you know, you always have to wear a sock kind of guy. No, I feel like, you know, as long as it doesn't become trendy and you're not doing it because it's in or it's trendy. No, I think it's a good look. Not all the time. You know, people go to extremes. Then they're like, you know, I'm throwing out all my socks. You know, okay,
right.
You know,
right.
No, but you know, definitely you can be in a finely tailored suit and loafers and no socks. It's okay with me. On the right guy, and wears it with a certain ease and casualness. I think it's great. No, I wouldn't, you know, it's not something I would do all the time. Rarely, actually. I really prefer it more with a sportier look.
Right.
But, you know, and then again, I will say this, you know, in the middle of summer, in August, you know, it's useful. I mean,
Yeah.
it has its own
Talk to me
practicality,
about it.
you
Yeah.
know, and you know, now they're doing great things in sort of designing and with technology of making the no-show socks and the, you know, that are really well crafted and really,
Mhm.
to me, I'm not so much a fan of just like the foot in the shoe. Please throw a no-show sock on there just for everybody's sake, and you'd be good, you know. On behalf of everybody, I thank you.
And the room thanks you for when you take them off
Hey,
later
totally.
on. I wanted to ask you these last two because I love asking these questions as far
No,
as like
sure.
the craziest things, right?
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier about barbecue food in general. Barbecue can get pretty crazy with some of the things that are made in a barbecue pit and are put on a plate. What would you say, and it doesn't have to be barbecue, but what has been the craziest thing you've eaten, whether it be at a restaurant or in somebody's backyard, that they put on a plate for you and you've actually eaten it?
There's a lot of ways to go with that question. There might be kids listening, so we'll refrain from that. But you know, there have been some Asian and sort of Thai restaurants that I've been in that I have eaten some exotic things that I couldn't pronounce, but I knew just by looking at them.
Yeah.
This was some exotic stuff, you know.
And was it good?
Yes, in its own way, you know, not across the board, you
Gotcha.
know. But I have to say the majority of it, yes.
Okay.
And I'm always, you know, I do like trying new things and you know, you can fall into a rut, you know, especially when you go out to eat, you sort of order the same things, but you know, you also want to give some credit to the chef and sort of pay them some respect that they've worked hard to create something that maybe on paper sounds, you know, a little frightening.
Right.
But they've put a lot of love into it and they think it's amazing. You sort of want to, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, you know what? I'd give that a shot. Even if you don't love it, it's good to try it.
Indeed. I agree 1,000%. You know, there's been times where I've gone and I've seen a menu where they will name something pretty creatively. And you know, I know within the barbecue community, right? Rocky Mountain oysters, which happen to be, yeah. You know, and then you're like, wow, oysters, let me try that. And it's got nothing to do with oysters whatsoever. And then at the end of the day, you're like, you know, that might not have been so bad after all. I'll never do it again.
But, absolutely. Would never do it again, but I'm glad I tried it. It's in the book.
Right.
Now I can go back.
We can check this one off the list.
Right. Now you can go out and get a pizza, you know.
And now going back to that's craziest thing again, with your style. What has been the most quote unquote outrageous, craziest thing you've been seen in?
That's a good question. You know, I guess outrageous and crazy is in the eye of the beholder. What I consider to be outrageous and crazy, you know, or not outrageous and crazy may look to somebody like, what the hell is he wearing? Now, it's funny that you bring that subject up because just today in the shop, one of our #1 selling items is a butter yellow suit. Now, this suit is yellow. I mean, now, depending on the kind of person,
butter yellow doesn't leave much to the imagination. So
it's butter yellow, man.
Right.
And you know, we were actually, you know, as the month sort of gets into the end of the month, we look and see, you know, you tally up, you know, what you've done for the month, and then we did sort of a year-to-date thing, and then you go back and whatever. And just out of curiosity, we were going to like what the #1, 2, and 3 best-selling items were. The butter yellow suit, which, you walking around head to toe yellow. You know, you're like a human emoji, right? Coming down the street. But just like anything else,
What's the hardware color on it? I'm curious.
It depends. We make it, you know, all
Oh, you
different
can
colors.
change it up.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
It, you know, for me, I think I did it like a chocolate brown button, but we do it with a white button. I think looks good too, but whatever. Now, to me, you know, there is no limit to crazy as long as you wear it with some confidence, you know, and you feel at ease in it. Then it's for someone else to say it's crazy, but for you, it's this is my yellow suit, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, I hear you.
So, you know, some people are going to tell you, "Oh my God, he looks like Big Bird," you know.
Is it that yellow?
Oh, it's yellow, man. No, it's legit yellow.
Oh, wow.
But that being said, you know, it's like one of our #1 sellers, and B, I love it. And if I love it, I'm gonna wear it, and you're gonna feel comfortable in it. And you're gonna feel good in it. And then I say, you know, rock your yellow suit. Go hard in your yellow suit. And if you do that and you adapt that mentality, you know, nothing is really out of the question. You will go as crazy as you want to go as long as you feel comfortable. So that's the long-winded answer. I would say the short answer is the craziest thing that I've worn, I probably haven't worn it yet. It's an evolving process. You know, the next one might be crazier than the last crazy thing. So I would say the short answer is let's wait and see.
Tune in.
You
And
know?
speaking of which, for all the people here, what's on the horizon and where can everyone find you on social media, website, and store location?
So we have a store in New York, Midtown Manhattan, 55th Street and 5th Avenue at 27 West 55th Street is the exact address. Social media, it's my name. It's Christopher Korey. And our website, which is where the majority of our stuff is being purchased these days with the travel restrictions we got going on, is ckcny.com.
Excellent. I thank you so much for this. This was really a delight.
Bro, the pleasure and the honor is completely mine, and I am humbled and honored that you asked me, and I couldn't think of a better way to spend the time.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and the best of success to you in everything, in real estate, personal, clothing, everything. Thank you so much again.
And let's go get that barbecue sometime soon.
Anytime you're in Miami or next time I'm up in New York, we got it.
Gonna happen.
All right, man. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be well. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.